Welcome back. So of course we know what happened next. Adam and Chava had one thing they were not allowed to do. They were not allowed to eat from the Eitz Hadas, from the tree of knowledge. But of course that's exactly what they did. Now let's think about it. What is that temptation? What is that temptation to do exactly the one thing we're not supposed to do? And not only that, think about the specific thing they were not allowed to do. They were not allowed to try to gain knowledge that was not given to them. Now that's the actions of a master, not a servant. The actions of someone who feels and believes that they should do something, the one thing that they're not allowed to do. Now, of course, there is a deep concept of why they did what they did. But before we get to that, once that happened, they were thrown out of Gan Eden. They were thrown out of the perfect world. Simply because there was no more perfect world. The perfect balance, the perfect situation where there could be a human being, two human beings together as one, that would only have to do one thing, accomplish one thing, and the world would reach its purpose. That universe was gone forever. There was a new universe. There was a universe that would now need filtration, that would now need separation from good and evil for many, many, many years and decades to come. So much so that even their own children, imagine, just one generation removed from creation itself, already were divided in the clarity of service. But let's rewind. There is a deep concept that Adam HaRishon thought to himself, that it can't be that all of Hashem's work to create this amazing, beautiful, and powerful universe would be accomplished in just one simple action of not eating from the Eitz Hadas, and as Chazal tell us, not eating it for 3 hours. Once Shabbos arrived, they would have been allowed to eat it. For 3 hours, they were not allowed to eat it. Adam HaRishon thought to himself, it can't be, it would be a waste. Such an amazing world to come to its completion, to come to its goal in such a short time. And he thought that it was his job to try and maybe eat from it and then cause the generations after it to serve Hashem. It's a very beautiful idea, but it was still wrong. That's the thinking of a master. That's not the thinking of a servant. A servant does. A servant does what the master says. And immediately, this was seen by his children. We know that Cain and Hevel both served Hashem. They served their master, but in very, very different ways. Cain served with the least he could get away with. Hevel served with the best he could find. Now let's think what happened next. Hevel's service is received with joy, with glory. Cain's service is declined, and where does that lead him? To the end. It leads him to destroy half the world. Because he was not thinking as a servant anymore. He was thinking as a master. He was thinking, why did what I did not get approved? It was not a service. And we see that right afterwards, when Hashem calls out to him and asks him, where is your brother? He can already think to himself, maybe Hashem doesn't know. Can you imagine being one generation removed from creation and already having the guts to say, oh, I don't know? That's what being a master is. And that's what the world turned into. A place where it requires an extreme amount of filtration, extreme amount of separation of good and evil. And for generations to come, the perfect human being was lost to all. There was no perfect human being anymore. There was no perfect being in this world that could accomplish that feat. Which is why we know that the world in that time was at a terrible level. Things that people did. from murder to stealing and so forth, until Noach came. Imagine, he was one person, a single person. Everyone in his town thought he was crazy. Everyone in his country thought he was crazy. Everyone in the world thought he was crazy. Maybe he even thought he was crazy. But he was the one single servant that said, it doesn't matter what people say. It doesn't matter what sense says. It doesn't matter what I think. I'm going to do what my master said I should do. The Torah says he was walking with God. He returned to that level of just walking by the side of his master, doing his master's will no matter what. And only him, and only because of him, did the world survive. It still needed filtration, even from his own children. There still needed to be more separation between good and evil to get the world back to a level where there can be a being in it, where there can be a human being in it that will have the power to accomplish the world's purpose. And that continued. And that continued for generations. So as you see, and let's do a quick recap before we move in to the creation of Hashem's children. Hashem created the world with a clear and crisp purpose, to have in it a being that will have a balanced 50-50 choice to serve or not to serve. He created a perfect universe and a perfect being with the perfect tools, with one single decree: do not eat from the tree. That failed. And in turn, the world became a world that was not balanced anymore, that needed way more filtration, way more separation between good and evil. But not only that, it also lost the perfect human being. And Hashem needed to again separate and create a new human, a new being, through the generations, through Cain and Hevel, through Noach, and until we get to our forefathers, to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Because indeed that is the goal, and that was the goal, and that will always be the goal. To have the ultimate servant. And as we will see in the coming episodes, as soon as one of our forefathers reached any point and any high level, what they became was not masters. What they became were the ultimate servants. And now, let's discuss an idea that might be relevant to people today. People walk around and they see what's happening out there in the world. We live in chaotic times. And there's a lot of challenges out there. And people find themselves asking, what does it have to do with me? Does it have anything to do with me? Is there something I can do about it? And so forth. Well, I feel that if we live by the concept that we discuss in our podcast, the question is something else. The question is, as a servant, is there something my master wants from me? And if the answer is yes, what does he want from me? And how can I accomplish it? Because you see, when we ask that question, there is an actual answer. It's not just, well, there is something to talk about, there is something to gossip about. There is something that is actually relevant, it's physical, we can figure it out, and then go and do that action and feel that we did what we had to do. This is the other side of the coin. Being able to ask that question. As a servant, what does my master want from me today? What does my master want from me in this moment? As we will continue to see, everything that we have, everything that we were given, are all tools in one way or another to show us the direction that our master wants us to go. And it is up to us to choose and say, as a servant, I will do it. And here's the thing. A lot of times people feel like, but I'm doing so many good things and I don't feel good. But here's the thing. When one says, I am doing something because I understand it and I feel like it and so forth, they're not going to feel too good about themselves. But when one says, I am a servant and I'm doing this out of service no matter if I understand or if I feel it or if I like it or if it's convenient. Now that's a feeling of accomplishment. That's doing what we were created for. Tomorrow, we will continue in the creation of our forefathers and how that changed the world forever. Thank you again for joining me, and have an amazing day.